Hello, uh, glad to have you. I'm going to talk about something that I've been wanting to talk about for quite a while, um, and that is whatever happened to those 10 tribes. There's all kind of references to it from time to time, but there's not a lot unless you're doing your own personal study into these kind of things. You probably haven't heard much about it. I know I haven't. We know the 10 tribes disappeared, but there's not much said about it. So I wanted to go over some materials that I think comes to some interesting conclusions. Now, first of all, I think it's important to sort of look at a timeline of things so we understand how things work. I mean, who did what when? Because this disappearance of the 10 tribes isn't just something, it's talked about sort of like just they were taken off and never heard from again. But I think we can see that they didn't disappear in that sense, like all of a sudden they walked off a cliff, right? So I wanted to go over a few things for us to give us context. First of all, we know that there were several uh, moments in history where people who were the descendants of Isaac, of Jacob, excuse me, that these descendants were taken into captivity, etc., uh, relocated, etc. It didn't happen just once or twice, it happened multiple times, and it happened to different groups in different ways. And so you need to understand who those people are. So you've heard of the Code of Hammurabi, right? That's where a lot of people think that's where the laws all came from, was Hammurabi. Some people have suggested that. But Hammurabi was the sixth king of the Amorite first dynasty of Babylon. Amorite just means that this king happened to start being Amorite. But he was a Babylonian um, king. So the first Babylonian uh, empire was from about 1792 to 1750 BC. All right, it's almost 2,000 years before Christ. Um, then different things happened in the what we might call the old world, and we know that things happened with Egypt, etc., etc. For a reference, about 1,000 BC, David became who was had become a king of Israel, and there's plenty of that if you want to learn about David. You can read the Old Testament, but he's the very famous, revered king of Israel, who and he captured Jerusalem about 1,000 BC. So this is the first Babylonian Empire had come and gone. There was a vacuum, sort of a vacuum of power, and this small state of Israel was able to rise up and become a significant state in the Middle East at that time, covering what we now know as Jordan and Lebanon, and up into Lebanon and down to Egypt, down the Gaza Strip, etc., covering a pretty large area, not just right around Jerusalem. Now, David's son Solomon, he was he reigned from 970 to 931 BC. So, 931 BC, he died, and the kingdom of Israel split. And so we have Judah, where what came to be known as Judah, who are the Judahites, and David was from the tribe of Judah. There were other 11 other tribes, right? Actually, there were 12 other tribes even at that point. Um, yeah, because you had the half tribe of Manasseh and what's the other one? Um, Benjamin. So the kingdom of Israel is divided. The southern kingdom, as a way of referencing the differences between the two, the southern kingdom, Judah, uh, its kings would sometimes they'd be good kings and follow the ways of Yahweh, and other times they'd go and worship other gods. On the other hand, the northern kingdom, the kingdom that we know of, the northern kingdom, Israel, they went downhill. They they did not follow Yahweh anymore, and they started, following other gods and doing things like that. So, at about 20 years later, the Assyrians come along, and they become a power. And then, so the Assyrians are a power, and then there is another power. It's not an empire kind of power. It's just it is the precursor to what became the Persian Empire. I would say somebody took over the Medes. These are the Medes. So the Persian Empire, what we call the Persian Empire, is sometimes called the Medo-Persian Empire with Cyrus the Great, Darius, those guys. That's later on. But the Assyrians, they don't really fight the Medes in a big way. They just sort of, occasionally they have some little skirmish with the Medes. But the Medes are like multiple kings who rule areas over around Iran, in that area, what we know today as Iran. A couple of hundred years later is when the Assyrians, now remember, Israel was about 1000 BC in that area. A couple hundred years later, Assyria is having a problem with some of these northern kingdom of Israel kings, and they take them into captivity. And so this is the first captivity, but there's multiple captivities that happen here. It didn't happen just one, but there was multiples of them. And it happened with the northern kingdom, the 10 tribes, and they took them off up into the northern area of the Assyrian Empire. And then Assyria falls, and then you have the Neo-Babylonian Empire comes along, and that is the empire that deports the Jews or takes them into captivity to Babylon. And so there's plenty the prophet Daniel, the book of Daniel, etc. And there's these issues going on between who's running Babylon, and later on the Persians come along and conquer Babylon, and but they're dealing only with Judah. Okay, so the Assyrians are the ones that carry the 10 tribes into captivity. Now, I'm going to read a couple of things from books in the Bible, just to give us an idea. Then the king of Assyria, this is 2 Kings 17, 5 through 6. Then the king of Assyria invaded all the land that came to Samaria. And for 3 years he besieged it. Now remember the name Samaria. This is because these words, different text, different references, reference various things that mean sort of the same thing. So I'll talk about that in a second. So he besieged it, and in the 9th year of Hoshea, the king of Assyria captured Samaria, and he carried the Israelites away to Assyria, and placed them in Hala, and on the Habor, the river of Gozan, and in the cities of the Medes. In the cities of the Medes. Now, that was the first time. A little bit later, in the 4th year of King Hezekiah, which is the king of Judah. But we have to remember, these books are being written, these records are written by the Judahites, the people in Judah. So they're writing it, so they give you reference to, but this is the king of Judah, and at the same time, the king of Judah, so and so is the king of Israel. They don't call themselves Israel. They're Judah. So in the fourth year of the king Hezekiah, the king of who was a very good king, by the way, which was the seventh year of Hoshea, son of Elah, king of Israel. So Hoshea was the king of Israel. Shalmaneser, king of Assyria, came up against Samaria, which is the capital of Israel, and besieged it. So that's another record. And at the end of the 3 years, he took it in the 6th year of Hezekiah, which was the 9th year of Hoshea, the king of Israel. Samaria was taken. And the king of Assyria carried the Israelites away to Assyria and put them in Halah and on the Habor, the river of Goshen, and in the city of the Medes. So this is sort of it happened twice. And this is why. Because they did not obey the voice of the Lord and their God, the Lord their God, but transgressed his covenant, even all that Moses, the servants of the Lord, commanded. They neither listened nor obeyed. So that's what happened to them. They weren't following God according to the record of the Judites. And then later on, in First Chronicles chapter 5, the sons of Reuben, and this tells us who we're talking about. The sons of Reuben, the firstborn of Israel, for he was the firstborn, but because he polluted the father's couch, Reuben's birthright was given to the sons of Joseph, the son of Israel. Excuse me. The birthright was given to the sons of Joseph, the son of Israel. So Joseph is the son of Israel. Joseph, as we know from the multicolored coat, remember all the brothers went down to to Egypt, and Joseph had risen to the position of vice pharaoh, sort of second man in command of things. And then this record goes into the heads of their fathers, and it goes into the names of who were at the time the heads of the particular tribes, the families. And then it says in verse 25, but they transgressed against the God of their fathers, and played the harlot after the gods of the peoples of the land, whom God had destroyed before them. So the God of Israel stirred up the spirit of Pul, king of Assyria, the spirit of Tilgath-Pilnei, of Panezer, king of Assyria, and he carried them away, namely the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh, and brought them to Halah, Habor, Hara, and the river Goshen of this day. So those were some of the main tribes, the main families of Israel, which you can imagine some of these. For example, the Dan isn't even mentioned. Now there's a lot said about where Dan goes. Dan was a small tribe in the first place, and that's just another issue. But for some reason, Dan's not spoken of here, right? It was interesting that the birthright was given to the sons of Joseph, not Reuben, who was the first son. Okay. Anyway, thought that was interesting. So they're taken off by Assyria, and they're taken to Habor. Now I'm going to give you a little bit of information. We're going to pull out some maps here because I think it's pretty interesting. So, just to give you some reference, this is. You don't need to see that. So this is the Assyrian Empire. And you can reach it, see it reaches all the way from the Persian Gulf over here, Persian Gulf here, and it reaches over to the Mediterranean. The Fertile Crescent there area. Now, important for us to see here is these Assyrians, they took the tribes of Israel, and they took them to places like, there's a place up here called Goshen, the river Goshen. That's the river Goshen up here. And they took them to Habor. Let's see. Yeah, this is called Haran. So this is maybe that's the Haran. Uh, but anyway, I want you to see the context of it. Right up here, just above on this map, just right up here is the Black Sea. It runs right along through here. Over here is the Caspian Sea. Okay, and then there's, if you look at your world map, there's an opening. There's an area between a mountain range between there. Over here is coming this way. We're coming would be Asia Minor, where Turkey is today, right? Here's another map that shows us a few things. This is a map from BibleStudy.org, and it shows you similarly Gosan. That's the river Gosan. It doesn't show Hara. It shows Hala. That's one of the names of the places that they were taken up here to the northern part of Assyria, up above Nineveh. Habor River. So this area here would be Habor kind of area, and Gosan and Hala, and then and to the cities of the Medes. So the Medes are over here. So some have suggested that what happened was the Assyrians sort of used these people. So they took them, then they relocated them to give themselves a buffer between them and the Medes. So if the Medes started acting up or anything, these people that they put up in this area, well, they would defend themselves, and in the effort of defending themselves, they'd be like the first line of defense for Assyria. Assyria wasn't attacking the Medes, but if something happens with the Medes, and the Medes decided to come in and come into Nineveh, well, they'd have people up there who'd be in the way of keeping them from doing that. So, hey, let's take you up there. This is not odd in history. Let's take some people from one place and go plant them somewhere else, and let them farm, and they'll farm that area, and they'll raise crops and horses and cattle, and we'll use, they'll help us with our needs. It's open space up there, so let's put some people up there and have a buffer. So they did that, and these at other places it talks about what kind of warriors. In fact, if you in the I think it was the Chronicles, if you read that whole chapter in Chronicles, on the next couple of chapters, it talks about how powerful and what great warriors these Israelites were, but they just weren't as big and as strong as the Assyrians. So the Assyrians took them off into captivity. So that's where these people ended up. They were taken from. Let's look at this map again. They were taken from down here, and they were taken up to here. Now, a couple other pieces of information. Samaria is and we're going to refer to this in just a minute. Samaria, although we may be familiar with the Good Samaritan who was from Samaria, right? And at the time of Jesus' ministry, the Jews hated the Samaritans, the people from Samaria, and even Jesus told his disciples at one point, "Don't go into Samaria." So, but Samaria is where Omri built his capital. He was one of the kings he was the sixth king of Israel. Judah was existing down there with other kings, and he was the sixth king of Israel. He was he was a military leader, and in Israel, they didn't follow bloodline too well at all. Everybody was one guy would kill off another guy, take over. So often these people weren't bloodline. For example, it'd be really important for a king in Israel, in Judah, to be of the bloodline of David. That would be a key important thing to make sure you're maintaining that bloodline. The king of Judah, David, who was king of Israel at the time. but he was of the house of Judah. Well, these other houses that split off from Judah, uh, obviously they weren't of the bloodline. It was somebody who rebelled against after Solomon died. They decided we don't want to be run by Judah anymore. We want to do our own thing. So Omri was the sixth king of that line. So now, giving us more information. So Omri, and I speak of Omri, why? Because Omri is a guy who is spoken of in Assyrian records and other records. And as I said, he built Samaria. So if you see a reference about Samaria, that's in Israel. That is the capital of Israel, where the 10 tribes are. If you hear a reference to Omri, he's the king of Israel, and a significant one. His house lasted for, I think, 12 generations or something like that. But he is referred to on the Mesha Stela, which was also known as the Moabite stone. It's discovered in 1868. And it says, Omri was king of Israel. He did oppress the Moab for many days, for Shemosh was angry with his land. And his son Ahab, it didn't say his son, who was Ahab. We know Ahab as being a very evil king in the Bible. Ahab succeeded him. And he also said, I will oppress Moab. So Ahab continued the oppression of Moab. In my days he said this, but I triumphed over him and over his house, and Israel has perished forever. Moab being a vessel under the Israelite domination. Okay, so Israel has perished forever. I'm just saying Moab was a vassal of Israel domination. And they threw off the power of. Now, Israel at that point didn't. Ahab did not disappear. There were many kings after Ahab. But this stone, the Moabites, it's sort of like what's going on right now with the Iranians. We've just had the 12-day war, which is continuing to go. But and the leader came out the other day or yesterday or whatnot and said, "Hey, we slapped the Americans in the face by shooting missiles at their base," and it's just hyperbole kind of stuff, just to make yourself look good for the history books. Then there's the Black Obelisk of Shalmaneser III, which is another historical piece, archaeological piece. It was discovered in Nimrud. It depicts Jehu, and Jehu actually, it depicts Jehu bowing before the Assyrian king and paying tribute. The inscription reads, "The tribute of Jehu, son of Omri, silver, gold, golden bowl, a golden vase, and pointed bottom, golden, blah, blah, blah." So things that he did. Jehu, the 10th king, ended the house of Omri, really. But the Assyrians continued to call anybody from that area who had their capital at Samaria sons of Omri, the house of Omri. And then there's also a couple other Assyrian colossal bulls and a marble tablet detailing the campaigns of Shalmaneser, and they also mention Omri. So Omri gets mentioned. Now, this is the reason I bring it about Omri is now I'm going to share another source to try to help us understand, and that may help us understand some things. So this is just a piece from Identifying Biblical Israel Today, and the person who wrote this is making a particular argument, and I think it's a pretty good argument, and that is that the people who run the world are the ones who are writing things very often, right? Or you don't just make a stele. You just don't go out and carve out a column with images and words on it for the fun of it. There's some significant reason to do it. This is normally done by somebody who is trying to show their power, etc. There might have been things made on clay that got destroyed over the centuries, right? But these things that are on stone, on rock, we still have them showing up archaeologically. So here's an example of this is the Byzantine inscription, and this is life size basically. This is on the side of a rock face. It's just south of the Caspian Sea. Okay, and this is where they understand Darius the Great of Persia is showing how he's taking people into captivity, or they're coming to pay homage to him or whatnot. And I've heard some people that suggest that these are the kings of the lost tribes of Israel, but that doesn't make sense because Darius was well after that. See, so that's why I gave you information. Darius is Persian. He's after the Babylonians. He's not that the king who was around at the time of the captivity. However, what's important about this is he refers to, there's an inscription that goes along with this that's in multiple languages, so that he's letting everybody. You may speak Aramean, you may speak Akkadian, whatever you speak. He had inscriptions along with this bas relief. He had inscriptions made, and it mentions the people that we think is probably Israel, the Gemiri and the Sumerians, I think it was. Thought I had it written here real clear. My apologies. But anyway, that carving, it mentions certain people's groups, and which I'm about to share with you right now. So, according to this reference that I was just talking about, the historian, if the historian is from Babylon, and then this person is writing, inscribing something somewhere or writing it in some kind of record, he refers to Gemiri or Gemirai or Gamera. Now, if he's Assyrian, he talks about Scythians, Celts, and Parthians. If he's Persian, he talks about Sake, Saka, Masakate, and Scythians. Now, these sound absolutely unrelated. But, when I watch a lot of British TV, and there's a lot of times I have to have the, what do you call it? The subscript, there's a word for that with a C. I have to have the words on the screen to understand what these people are saying. They're saying words, the same words I use. I can read what they're saying. I just can't comprehend what they're saying, right? Years ago, I worked with a man who he was going to be cutting some shrubs. He was talking about how he needed to cut shrubs. Well, he didn't say, I'm cutting shrubs. I've never heard anybody say anything about shrubs. But for him, it was, I need to cut the scrubs. Well, if this man was, instead of being a yard worker, a maintenance man, if he had been somebody who became king or governor of the state or whatever, then he would have influenced people a lot, and you'd probably have people saying scrubs instead of shrubs. So our language, and then how do you write things out? We know this isn't, if you just look at a little bit the history of language, just look at it a little bit. The English language, can you read the original Old English from Beowulf and stuff like that? I mean, look at the original King James Bible, and you can see, they're spelling words different then than we spell them today. So it shouldn't really surprise us. Now, and so what is suggested, been suggested, is that the Gemirai is a version of Omri, the people of Omri. At some point, they became Gemirai instead of Omri, Gemirai. Who knows how or why, but that's what is suspected because of where they were taken. These people are people who live in the area. By the records that we have, they live in the area of Hala, Abor, Ara, the river Gosan, and the Medes. These peoples moved up, and there's records of these people moving around and being here and there and the other. Some military leader ran into them, or whether it was maybe they were trying to attack somebody, maybe they were trying to do enterprise, trade with someone who lived in a particular area. So it's Kuza. It's suggested that maybe that's from Isaac. These are the sons of Isaac. The Eskusa. Kumri, Omri. Maybe, it certainly fits with Gemirai, similarly. Sumerians. Now, this is with a C-I, but it's different spelling, the way people spelled things and translated things in different ways. But that could easily be Sumerians, right? Scythians, I don't know how that is, other than the Greeks called people in this area Scythians. So the Greeks didn't necessarily have the same historical context as the Babylonians and the Assyrians. And of course, the Persians were coming from east. They came through that area, and so they may have known them. They might have known the peoples in their south of the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea as the same kind of names as the Babylonians and Assyrians. But the Greeks were coming from the opposite direction, and they were having their own interactions with people up to the northeast of them. And they called these people Scythians to a large degree. So I'll just sort of read off some of the thought that this particular text talks about. It says, and it gives dates. They're thinking that around 745 BC. And let's see here. So we have the tribes being relocated between 732 and 680. Okay, so 745. I don't know what that doesn't make sense. See, according to that. Now, different people have different opinions about exactly which years things happen, but somewhere in that neighborhood, this person thinks that these tribes were taken up, as we read from the Bible. Reuben, Gad, Naphtali, and half tribe Manasseh were taken up, and then about 718 is when Samaria was captured. That was another, and they were taken to the same place, the same people, and it lists the same people: Qumri, Gemiri, Cimmerians, and Scythians are listed as what happened. Now, what's interesting though is, as I mentioned, where's my map? As I mentioned, these people start migrating for different reasons. Maybe the reason is, and historically, this just is, we've seen it happen over and over again. You can go back and study history. You see it happening all the time, and that is, let's say that Canada becomes a major military power, one of the strongest military powers in the world, and it becomes stronger than the United States. And one day, Canada make some incursions into New York State or Maine. And what are people in New York State or Maine going to do? Are they going to, some of them are going to pick up arms and they're going to fight the Canadians, right? But others of them are going to say, I'm just not interested in being in this situation. I'm going to move along. I'm moving to Florida. I'm getting as far away from this as I can. And so that's really what happened. We have situations where, when the Huns came in, you had these hordes that would move across. Doesn't matter who it is. Where it could be, you can imagine Alexander the Great, how he might have affected somebody. But generally, it would be not just an army. It would be whole communities of people, right? Traveling, not just men with weapons, right? And they'd be coming in and taking over areas, and sometimes wiping out populations. Maybe because it's, and we see this historically all the time. You just wipe out the population because you don't want them to. You don't want their sons and daughters to rise up against you. You want their horses. You want their gold. You're not interested in settling down and farming necessarily, but you want everything they have, and so you're going to steal it all and you're going to kill them. So when people know that something like that's coming, they often will pick up whatever they have and they're going to move somewhere else. So this is what the kind of thing, either that or, just like we know in our own, here in the United States, people came to the New World, and some of them were doing okay in the Carolinas and up and down the East Coast, and others decided, hey, I'm Daniel Boone. I want to go west. So Daniel Boone went west, right? I want to go to the Oklahoma Territory. So piles of people went to Oklahoma, etc. People move. And so these people did that. And what they did was they lived here in this area up in here. And what they did was, as they went that way and they went this way, they went over toward Turkey, some of them. They went up through between Caspian Sea and the Black Sea, which is that way. Some of them went north to on the other side of the west side of the Black Sea. And these people, it's you can look at history books. It's not surprising. You see about the Scythians moving across Europe from the Eastern Europe to the Western Europe. Well, who were these Scythians? Well, this interests me from a particular point of view, and that is we have this, I'll call it a mythology. It's not that it's not based on record. It's just that what we have this mythology that the 10 tribes disappeared, and the one tribe, two tribes, Manasseh, Benjamin, and there some of these people. It's not like they all got taken into captivity. Some of them stayed in Israel and continued to. There were some people who might have been of the faith of Israel who would go to the temple even during Jesus's time, and who might have still lived in northern Israel, or it wasn't called Israel anymore. And of course, there were people who might have been of those tribes who lived in Judah. Just because you the area was ruled by the house of Judah didn't mean that nobody else, the Levites, for example, there were Levites there. Didn't mean that weren't other houses that were in there. It's just that they no longer were the ruling power. Judah was run by the Judahites. So, but by bloodline, there could be other people. Similarly, these people who got taken away, they didn't just disappear. And the Judahites aren't the only people who have the bloodline of Joseph in them, because those people didn't disappear. Those people who went up here didn't disappear. They just went up there. Okay? So years later, we have Jesus show up, and he preaches the gospel. He is put on the cross, rises from the death, all of a sudden thousands and thousands of people go and look at the book of Acts. You can see the record of how so many people, and read some of Paul, you can see how people saw Jesus after he had risen. And so all of a sudden you had this sect of Jews who were believing in that the Christ had come. And then they go and you have people, somebody like Paul, who goes out to the pagans, right? To the Greeks, as they called people, or non-Jewish people. There's another word for it. And he goes and preaches to them. Well, to me, it's probable that Paul is preaching to a lot of his own relatives, right? I mean, as far as being, all of these people are from the house of Jacob. They're all Israelites. There's some that just went up there and because they very early on turned from Yahweh, as soon as Solomon was dead, then they were already on their own. In fact, they were probably doing it to a degree, but once they didn't have Solomon to keep them together as a nation, they just turned and started worshiping other gods, the same gods of the people around them. And then they got moved on up and worshiped gods up there. And it's quite probable that, as I think I mentioned, some of them might have carried a vestige of their faith with them. They might have had, in fact, there's archaeological pieces, of jewelry, images, carvings, and things like that seem to indicate that to a degree of people, Scythians, who that seems sort of like a Christian or a Judeo-Christian symbol that guy's whoever made this. So I just think that's very interesting. That it could be that see, you and I, if you're from Europe, you may be an Israelite, blood Israelite, not just grafted to the tree. But of course, from a Christian point of view, being grafted to the tree is a pretty critical thing. And so, but I could be, an Israelite, and just by DNA. Interesting, when you look at records of, like, for example, a good indication of this is David was ruddy and redheaded, and he was not. You see records, and there's people. Some of the things I've looked at, and I'm not showing them here. I don't know where they're at right now. Indicate if you're, like, maybe it's a piece of Greek pottery or something, and the Jew has red hair. Well, that's not what we think of as a Jew, is it? Or the Israelite has red hair. So I don't have a problem if if Jesus was dark skinned and black headed and brown eyed. I don't have a problem with that at all. It's irrelevant to me. But it might be that Jesus was. We think that it's a racist thing that people were painting Jesus with blue eyes and light brown hair. Obviously, no one had seen Jesus, right? I mean, in 1800 or the 1900s, you hadn't seen Jesus yourself. You don't know what Jesus looked like. But, it might not be so far-fetched that might be true. That's all I'm saying. Just interesting. So, I find this interesting. As if you've been following me, you know that, hey, I'm just trying to find out what the truth is. There's a lot of things that aren't worth getting all bent out of shape about. I know there's, some people argue, and there are people who have sort of there are people who are white supremacists who would really want to go a long way with this stuff and suggest all kind of things. But that's not what I'm interested in. I'm interested in the truth. And the main thing is that these lost tribes they're not lost as if they just died out and are no longer here. They're in the midst of us. That's 10 tribes, 10 families in the midst of us somewhere, whether you're one and I'm one, or whether our neighbor is. Who knows? And it could be that, they don't look anything as like what we would expect them to look. And they may be dark haired, black haired, brown eyed, brown skinned, and have more Israelite DNA than I have, right? Uh, it's quite possible because it's really easy to change for appearances to change. If you look into genetics, you really Nathaniel, what's his Nathaniel Jensen. If you look at some of the stuff he's talked about, he's a does the Y chromosome research, and it's amazing how people they can look Chinese and have more European DNA than somebody in Europe. It's just it's really amazing, or vice versa. So I'm interested in looking at truth. If you're interested in looking for the truth, then and you really want to know what the truth is, I think all you need to do is pray to your Creator. Hey, I want to know the truth. I don't care what it is. I just want to know the truth, and feel confident you'll find it. Please like, subscribe if you get anything out of this. My whole purpose is to share things that maybe you hadn't thought about. Have a good day.